Hey everyone, welcome back to Manga Minute. I'm thrilled to share my latest recap video with you. If you missed the previous one, no worries, just take a quick peek in the description below for the link. Now, let's dive right in and enjoy.
After graduating from the high school where he grew up, he found himself drawn to the allure of the big city. It had been 10 years since he left the village behind, a decade spent chasing the dreams he believed the city could offer. Each morning, he was jostled by the crowded train, surrounded by the countless faces of fellow passengers. His job, though initially filled with promise, quickly became a test of endurance. With each passing year, more responsibilities were heaped upon him, and the hours spent in the office stretched longer and longer. The rare weekends he was granted no longer brought the solace they once did. The historical novels that used to captivate him now sat untouched, gathering dust as his interest waned. The monotony of his daily life, devoid of any excitement or change, began to weigh heavily on him. The memories of his peaceful and beautiful hometown started to resurface more frequently. The man, now worn down by the relentless pace of city life, found himself yearning for the simplicity he once knew. And so, our story begins. As he opened his eyes, a wave of confusion washed over him. The world around him felt different, unfamiliar. Everything seemed oddly small, as if the room had grown larger overnight. But it wasn't the room that had changed, his body had shrunk. Panic began to set in as he struggled to make sense of his surroundings. This place was unfamiliar, and nothing about it made sense. As Vaughn stood beside the window, gazing out at the breathtaking garden below, a maid's urgent voice broke through his thoughts, warning him of some unseen danger. Turning toward her, Vaughn felt a strange disconnect. The view outside was mesmerizing, and he couldn't help but express his admiration for the beauty of the garden. But when he spoke, the maid, Teal, seemed startled by his words. Teal was taken aback, her eyes wide with surprise as she questioned how her young master, who was only 2 years old, could articulate such complex thoughts and speak so fluently. Vaughn, on the other hand, was grappling with his own confusion. How could he be 2 years old? His memories told him he was nearly 30, an office employee in the city, living a monotonous life. Yet, here he was in a body that felt foreign, with no memories of the life that should belong to this body. The realization struck him, this must be reincarnation. Still disoriented, he addressed the maid, confirming her name as Teal and identifying her as his private maid. Teal, relieved and pleased by his recognition, affirmed it enthusiastically. Vaughn continued to test his newfound reality, confirming his own name as Von Nei Furcio and listing his family members, including his father, Duke Jalpa Furcio, and his older brothers, Mercia, Yard, and Sesto. Teal's excitement grew with each accurate detail he recounted, marveling at how he could remember the names of even those brothers he rarely saw. As Vaughn absorbed the maid's reaction, the surreal nature of his situation became increasingly clear, deepening the mystery of how he had ended up in this new life. The maids gathered around the young Vaughn, their voices filled with praise as they watched him eat his vegetables. At just 2 years old, he was remarkably well-behaved, eating quietly without spilling a single bite. Their admiration surrounded him, and Vaughn couldn't help but draw a parallel to his past life, likening the scene to being a VIP customer at a hostess bar. Despite his confusion and lingering disbelief about his reincarnation, Vaughn resolved to do his best in this new world, even finding unexpected enjoyment in the sweet taste of the carrots on his plate. As dinner continued, the head of the family, Jalpa Furcio, turned to his second son, Yard, and inquired about his studies. Yard, at 10 years old, dutifully reported his lessons in fire magic and battle formations. Vaughn listened, his thoughts turning inward as he observed the family dynamic. It was clear that Jalpa took an active interest in his children's education, asking about their daily activities during dinner, a routine that seemed ingrained in noble customs. Vaughn noted how Jalpa's questioning didn't usually extend to him, a detail that further emphasized his position as the youngest son in a household where children were expected to distance themselves from their parents, focusing instead on their studies and training. Jalpa then directed his attention to Sesto, another of Vaughn's older brothers, who spoke of his own magical studies. The conversation was routine, the kind Vaughn had come to expect from the household, until suddenly, Jalpa addressed him directly. Startled, Vaughn instinctively responded, drawing on the knowledge he retained from his previous life. He spoke of his interest in studying the history and culture of the country, a statement that seemed to surprise his father. Jalpa's reaction was one of delight, his hearty laughter filling the room. He expressed his pride in Vaughn, acknowledging the intelligence and promise he saw in his youngest son. Jalpa mused that Vaughn, the last child born to his late wife, Mira, had not been spoiled as he had feared. Instead, Vaughn displayed a sharp mind even at such a young age. Jalpa's thoughts turned to the future, to the coming-of-age ceremony that would take place when Vaughn turned 8. It would be the moment when Vaughn's aptitude for magic would be appraised, and Jalpa was eager to see if his son would inherit the powerful fire magic that ran through the Furcio bloodline. With a sense of anticipation, Jalpa looked forward to the day when Vaughn would truly begin to realize his potential within the peaceful Furcio family. In a world where magic is woven into the very fabric of existence, understanding the type of magic one possesses is crucial, especially for those born into noble families. The most valued types of magic in these circles are the basic elemental magics: fire, water, air, and earth, used primarily for protection and offense, as well as healing magic, which is indispensable for maintaining the well-being of family and residents. Those with talents in other forms of magic often face scorn, as they are seen as less useful or prestigious. Vaughn knew that his father and brothers all wielded the 4 elemental magics with great proficiency, a source of pride for the Furcio family, who specialized in military power. Fire magic, known for its devastating offensive capabilities, was particularly revered among them. Despite the rigid expectations surrounding magical talents, Vaughn believed that any type of magic, if used creatively and effectively, could be valuable. The Furcio family, a noble house steeped in martial tradition, held a prominent position in a large military country located in the southern part of the Grand Continent, which lay to the west. The civilization of this world resembled the medieval and early modern periods of Earth, though the presence of magic simplified many aspects of life. The absence of gunpowder kept warfare reliant on traditional weapons such as swords, spears, bows, and arrows, with magic playing a pivotal role on the battlefield. The kingdom in which Vaughn now found himself had a royal lineage that spanned 300 years, marked by a steady expansion of territory. The current king, like his predecessors, led the noble families in military campaigns against smaller neighboring countries to acquire new lands. Vaughn's father, Duke Jalpa Furcio, had risen in rank from count to duke through his own achievements in such conflicts, reflecting the importance of military prowess in this society. As Vaughn contemplated the world around him, he recognized the intricate balance of power and tradition that defined his new life. The Furcio family's pride in their magical abilities and their role in the kingdom's military ambitions placed Vaughn in a world where strength and strategy were paramount. Vaughn studied the map of the continent. His thoughts wandered to the strategic importance of ports and sea routes. He noticed there was only one prominent port where ships set sail, likely due to the dangers that lurked in the deep sea. The threat of giant sea monsters made ocean voyages perilous, and even navigating through narrow straits seemed daunting without precise knowledge of the terrain. The existence of legendary monsters added another layer of complexity to travel and trade, making the idea of something akin to the European age of exploration virtually impossible in this world. While Vaughn pondered these challenges, Teal, his ever-attentive maid, offered insight into the world beyond human society. She explained that other races, such as elves, dwarves, and beastfolk, existed, but they tended to live in isolated regions, rarely interacting with humans. These races had built their own distinct cultures, far from the bustling cities where humans thrived. One of the other maids, noticing the depth of Teal's explanations, gently teased her for using such complex language. She then turned her attention to Vaughn, concerned about his well-being, and suggested he might want to take a nap. Vaughn, ever considerate, declined the offer and instead asked if the maids were the ones who needed rest. They, in turn, reassured him that they were fine. Shifting the conversation, Vaughn inquired about magical equipment. Teal explained that there were certain materials, magic stones, minerals, and crystals, that could store magical power. These materials were used to craft magic tools, each tailored to the user's specific magical compatibility. Esparta, the head butler, regarded Vaughn with a stern yet inquisitive gaze. He reminded Vaughn that he was only 2 years old and mentioned the basic letters and numbers Vaughn had been learning. With an air of authority, he asked how much Vaughn had retained. Vaughn observed Esparta with a mixture of respect and apprehension. The butler had served his father faithfully for many years, a figure known for his capability and strictness. Until now, Vaughn had avoided speaking with him, finding him intimidating. As Esparta inquired further, asking Vaughn to demonstrate his knowledge, Vaughn couldn't help but think that this was not how one should talk to a 2-year-old child. Nevertheless, he responded quickly, admitting that while he could speak, writing was still beyond him. Esparta pressed on, testing Vaughn's grasp of numbers with simple arithmetic. Using his fingers, he prompted Vaughn to solve basic addition and subtraction problems. Vaughn answered swiftly, much to Esparta's satisfaction. The butler then declared that he would personally take on the task of teaching Vaughn twice a week. Vaughn soon found himself under Esparta's rigorous tutelage, an experience that felt more like enduring a relentless drill than the gentle instruction one might expect for a child his age. The lessons were intense, the material far too advanced, and Esparta's unyielding demeanor left no room for leniency. Vaughn couldn't help but feel like he was being taught by an unfeeling machine, an android, who never wavered in his task. Despite the grueling nature of the lessons, Vaughn began to see the results. Over time, he learned to read and write, mastering a variety of subjects that most children his age wouldn't encounter for years. Though the process felt like enduring hell, Vaughn couldn't deny the progress he made under Esparta's strict guidance. The 2 years that followed were filled with relentless study, pushing Vaughn far beyond the typical expectations for a child, and molding him into someone far more knowledgeable and capable than his young age would suggest. The maid's voice rang out in praise as she watched Vaughn skillfully wield a wooden sword, marveling at the young master's impressive reflexes. Vaughn, absorbed in the practice, found himself enjoying the experience immensely. It reminded him of sparring with Maiko in a tatami room back in his previous life, though the art of swordplay here felt even more exhilarating. As the practice continued, Teal, Vaughn's loyal maid, managed to land a hit on him, declaring her victory with playful triumph. However, another maid immediately chastised Teal for her audacity, warning her of the severe consequences that could follow such an offense against a noble. The tension in the room rose as the maid suggested that Vaughn should administer a punishment for the perceived slight. Vaughn, hearing the suggestion, considered the idea of punishment with mild amusement. Teal, trembling with fear, expected a harsh reprimand, knowing that in many noble families, even a minor act of disrespect could lead to severe consequences. Yet, to her surprise, Vaughn opted for a much lighter approach. Instead of delivering a severe punishment, Vaughn simply flicked Teal's forehead, a gesture that was more playful than punitive. The action left Teal relieved, her fear subsiding as she realized that Vaughn had no intention of enforcing the rigid, unforgiving standards typical of nobility. Vaughn's progress in sword training was remarkable. Despite having only trained for half a year, he had rapidly advanced, learning new techniques every day. By the time he reached the age of 5, he was already capable of holding his own against older apprentices, the so-called young warriors. The rules were simple. The first to land a blow with their stick would be declared the winner. This straightforward competition captivated Vaughn, drawing him deeper into the art of swordsmanship. During a sparring session with a knight apprentice, Vaughn's mind wandered to his previous life, comparing the techniques he had learned in judo and karate. He mused over the importance of maintaining a balanced stance and exploiting the opponent's movements to deliver a decisive blow. His opponent, a child around 10 years old, had a taller body with long arms and legs, giving him an advantage in reach. However, Vaughn quickly recognized the limitations of his opponent. His attacks were predictable, lacking both skill and experience. Vaughn found it easy to anticipate and counter each move. D, the deputy of the knights, observed Vaughn's performance with keen interest. He approached Vaughn and examined his hands, noting with surprise that they were soft, without any signs of wear, and his nails were even long. D found it curious that despite Vaughn's apparent dedication to training, there was no evidence of it on his hands. Vaughn explained that his busy study schedule left him little time for practice, though he made an effort whenever he could because of his love for swordsmanship. D, having heard rumors about Vaughn's rigorous study regime, speculated that Sir Esparta, the head butler, had issued an order for Vaughn to study 3 times more than usual. This revelation left Vaughn stunned, as it explained the overwhelming number of lessons he had been enduring. D, seeing Vaughn's natural talent with the sword, offered to personally train him. He believed that Esparta's focus on academics overlooked Vaughn's potential as a swordsman. Dee was convinced that, with the right training, Vaughn could become the kingdom's greatest swordsman. He proposed that Vaughn focus on building his posture and strengthening his muscles, with daily training tailored to his body's needs. Dee promised to oversee Vaughn's swordsmanship development personally, ensuring that he reached his full potential. Vaughn, however, was determined to excel in both his studies and his sword training. He expressed his desire to learn both disciplines equally well, which left Dee with little choice but to agree. Dee, in turn, committed to guiding Vaughn through his swordsmanship practice with care, acknowledging that Vaughn was still a child and needed patience. But Dee's promise of gentle guidance quickly proved to be a lie. Vaughn's training turned into a grueling ordeal, far more intense than he had anticipated. He was made to swing his sword upwards 100 times, strike at mid-level 100 times, and practice stabbing 100 times more. Each exercise pushed him to his limits, leaving him gasping for breath. As Vaughn pleaded for a moment of rest, Dee's response was unrelenting. He urged Vaughn to continue, insisting that rest could come later. When Vaughn finally took a brief pause, Dee remembered another harsh aspect of the training. Resting was not to be taken lightly. Instead of relaxing, Vaughn was told to squat during his breaks, a method Dee claimed would keep him ready for more. Vaughn's once exhilarating swordplay had transformed into a relentless, almost torturous, regimen. Yet, despite the intensity of the training, Vaughn persisted, driven by a determination to master both the sword and his studies, even if it meant enduring the harshest of lessons. Despite the grueling challenges he faced, Vaughn found joy in his reborn life. The satisfaction he experienced in his current existence was something he had never felt before in his previous life. Every day was filled with a sense of purpose and fulfillment as he worked towards becoming a prominent figure in the noble world. The excitement of his new life, coupled with his relentless training and studies, made each day an adventure in its own right. However, the tranquility of Vaughn's life was abruptly shattered 3 years later. Having earned a reputation as a prodigy and enjoyed the pleasures of his second chance, Vaughn's world was turned upside down when his father, Jalpa Furcio, confronted him with a grim expression. The harsh reality of failure had struck, and Jalpa's disappointment was palpable. His declaration was dire. The shame of this failure was so profound that, instead of simply expelling Vaughn from the family, Jalpa considered it preferable to end his life. The weight of his father's words loomed heavy, casting a dark shadow over Vaughn's previously bright and promising future. The once promising life he had cherished seemed on the brink of collapse, as he faced the severe consequences of a failure that had irrevocably altered the course of his existence. 2 years prior, when Vaughn was 6 years old, he sat in his carriage, peering out at the vibrant city streets. The bustling crowd outside captured his attention with its lively energy and diverse array of people. The constant movement and activity fascinated Vaughn, never failing to hold his interest. From his vantage point inside the carriage, Vaughn expressed his enjoyment of the city's dynamic atmosphere. The sight of so many different individuals and the hustle of urban life never grew tiresome for him. His curiosity about the world beyond his immediate surroundings was palpable. Teal, ever attentive to Vaughn's wishes, inquired if he had a particular destination in mind. Vaughn, with a youthful eagerness, expressed a desire to explore the market. The prospect of visiting the market, with its array of sights, sounds, and opportunities for discovery, intrigued him. It was an exciting prospect for a young boy keen on experiencing the vibrant life of the city. At 6 years old, Von Nei Furcio grappled with the complexities of his extraordinary existence. Though he had lived nearly 30 years on Earth and retained vivid memories of that past life, his current reincarnation had placed him in a drastically different reality. As the fourth son of a noble family, Vaughn was hailed as a prodigy, a title that came with relentless lessons and harsh swordsmanship training. His daily life felt like an unending series of grueling challenges, a far cry from the ease he had once known. The political landscape of his new world was harsh and unforgiving. In a society where power and status dictated survival, the head of a noble family wielded immense influence and control. Vaughn understood that in such a cutthroat environment, even among siblings, the struggle for supremacy was fierce. The notion of eliminating rivals to secure one's position was a grim reality in aristocratic circles. Vaughn's relationship with his brothers was strained at best, and he knew that standing out as a prodigy could make him a target rather than a beneficiary. Faced with the harsh truth that his prominence could jeopardize his safety and peace of mind, Vaughn resolved to shift his approach. He decided to abandon the role of a prodigy and embrace a more ordinary existence. His aim was to blend in, to become a team player rather than a standout figure. However, this was no easy feat for Vaughn, whose past life had been defined by relentless work and achievement. To begin his transition to a more ordinary life, Vaughn chose a simple starting point: shopping. He believed that engaging in everyday activities like shopping would help him acclimate to the role of a typical child. As Vaughn explored the market, his attention was drawn to a large building situated at its center. It stood out prominently, resembling a grand shopping mall. Intrigued by its size, he asked about its purpose. Teal explained that it was the Marie Company, a vast enterprise with branches scattered throughout the kingdom. While Vaughn was still processing this information, a commotion erupted in the crowd. A man, visibly agitated, dragged a child along by a rope. The child's ragged clothing and the man's harsh demeanor caught Vaughn's attention. The scene was unsettling and drew the eyes of many onlookers. The man, defensive and impatient, dismissed the crowd's curiosity, insisting that his actions were none of their concern. He declared that the child, who was his own, was being sold into slavery to settle a debt. This revelation stirred murmurs among the crowd, reflecting a mixture of shock and resignation. Teal provided an explanation about the laws of slavery in this world. According to the regulations, there were only two types of permissible slaves: those indentured due to debt and those who had committed crimes. In impoverished families, it was not uncommon for children to be sold into slavery as a means of survival, a tragic consequence of dire financial circumstances. Vaughn observed the scene with a heavy heart. The crowd's indifferent reaction suggested that such occurrences were regrettably common and accepted. This deeply ingrained system of slavery, driven by economic hardship and legal constraints, left Vaughn troubled. He recognized the profound injustice and the grim reality of a society where such practices were normalized. Amidst the bustling activity of the market, Vaughn was approached by Rosalie, a representative from the Marie Company. Recognizing him as the renowned prodigy Von Nei Furcio, she welcomed him warmly and offered her assistance. Rosalie's demeanor was professional and courteous, eager to serve Vaughn's needs. Vaughn, however, had his attention drawn to a troubling sight: a child being dragged along by a man who was clearly in a state of distress. After confirming the child's identity as a slave being sold, Vaughn inquired about the cost of purchasing him. Rosalie quickly assessed the situation, noting that the child appeared to be around 8 years old. She asked the man about the child's magical abilities, to which the man replied that the boy's talent was in stealing. Based on this information, Rosalie estimated the child's worth to be no more than 3 large silver coins, reflecting the lower value typically assigned to slaves with limited abilities. The man, however, was not satisfied with the valuation. He argued that other shops offered higher prices and insisted that the boy, despite his condition, should be worth more. Rosalie explained that most shops would only offer half the value, and given the boy's circumstances, 3 large silver coins was a fair price. The man's frustration mounted as he berated his son for not being more profitable, displaying an abusive attitude. As the man prepared to leave with his son in tow, Vaughn intervened, offering to buy the boy for 5 large silver coins, a price higher than initially offered. The man, initially taken aback, demanded to see the money. Vaughn asked Teal, his personal maid, to provide the required coins, only to discover that she had only brought gold coins. Rosalie swiftly came to the rescue, suggesting an exchange of the gold coins for the needed silver coins to facilitate the purchase. Having successfully purchased the boy, Vaughn approached him with genuine concern. He gently inquired about the boy's well-being, introducing himself and asking for the boy's name. The child, his name revealed to be Kamshin, was visibly relieved as Vaughn cut his bindings and offered him freedom. Vaughn assured Kamshin that he was now free to go wherever he wished. Teal, Vaughn's maid, was taken aback by Vaughn's decision, questioning the need to buy Kamshin as a slave. Vaughn clarified that his intention was solely to help the child. Despite the dire circumstances, Vaughn wanted to offer Kamshin a chance for a better life. He asked the boy if he had anywhere else to go, suggesting instead that Kamshin come to his home and help with tasks. A guard raised a concern about the legality of bringing an unknown child into the mansion without formalities, advising that a slave contract might be necessary. Vaughn turned to Kamshin for his consent, and upon receiving a positive response, he proceeded with the arrangements. Rosalie, ever attentive, prepared the contract binding, explaining that the mark would be a permanent sign of the agreement unless broken. She offered to waive the contract fee as a courtesy, acknowledging the significance of Vaughn's gesture. Vaughn expressed his gratitude, and Rosalie, slightly flustered by the noble's thanks, guided them towards selecting appropriate clothing for Kamshin. Vaughn carefully chose garments that would be fitting for both Kamshin and the standards of his household, ensuring that the attire was suitable and comfortable. As Vaughn and Kamshin went through the clothing selection process, Rosalie provided options that were commonly used for slaves, but Vaughn rejected the notion of seeing Kamshin merely as a slave. He selected clothing that was practical and dignified, making sure to include suitable underwear and shoes for Kamshin. By the end of the day, Vaughn's outing had resulted in the purchase of a child who would now join his household. With Kamshin now part of his life, Vaughn returned to his regular routine of rigorous lessons and training, integrating the new addition into his world while continuing to face the demanding challenges of his daily life. Kamshin approached Vaughn with a look of concern and informed him that Deputy Commander D was seeking him. Vaughn, caught off guard, immediately felt a surge of panic and asked Kamshin to relay that he was not present. Kamshin, however, noted that it was likely D had already discovered Vaughn's whereabouts. Vaughn noticed that Kamshin was not wearing the gloves he had purchased, a detail that struck him as odd. Kamshin explained that the absence of gloves was a deliberate choice, meant to symbolize his connection with Vaughn. Vaughn reflected on the gloves he had bought specifically for Kamshin, realizing that they were intended to be used by him. Kamshin, understanding Vaughn's concern, quickly responded that he would put on the gloves, acknowledging their significance. As Deputy Commander D arrived, he was greeted by Kamshin, who reported that Master Vaughn was not present. D, however, was skeptical, pointing out that witnesses had seen Vaughn enter the room earlier. Kamshin, trying to deflect the suspicion, suggested that the witnesses might have been deceived by an illusion, a manifestation of Vaughn's strong presence. D, unconvinced, scrutinized Kamshin more closely and noticed a crumb of cookie on his mouth. He pointed it out, questioning why Kamshin had food remnants when he claimed not to have eaten anything recently. Kamshin hastily wiped his mouth and insisted that there were no leftovers, but D, not easily fooled, realized that Kamshin had tried to cover up. D's frustration turned into amusement as he saw through the ruse. He chided Kamshin for defying the orders of the deputy commander and, in a twist of irony, declared that Kamshin would be trained in Vaughn's place. D saw the situation as an opportunity to assert his authority and felt that Kamshin should consider it an honor to be trained by him. The unexpected turn of events marked a shift for Vaughn, who had previously enjoyed the luxury of being a prodigy and indulging in a relaxed lifestyle. Now, as Kamshin took on the training in Vaughn's stead, it seemed that Vaughn's habit of shirking responsibilities might be put to the test, signaling a new phase in his life where even the comfort of being an ordinary child would come with its own set of challenges and expectations. The anticipation surrounding Vaughn's upcoming magic appraisal ceremony was palpable. At the age of 8, Vaughn was about to undergo a significant evaluation that would determine his magical affinity. The excitement among those who knew him was evident, with many eagerly awaiting the results. Vaughn was widely recognized as an extraordinary prodigy, having excelled both academically and in swordsmanship. His accomplishments had generated a great deal of admiration and curiosity about what magic he would be compatible with. There was a general consensus that Vaughn's abilities would align with the prestigious elements of fire or wind, reflecting the legacy of the Furcio family's previous generations. His affable nature and playful demeanor had endeared him to many, who hoped he would ascend to the role of a feudal lord in the future. The Furcio family's tradition of magical compatibility with the 4 primary elements, fire, water, air, and earth, was well known. Given Vaughn's exceptional talents and lineage, expectations were high that he would be matched with fire magic, a testament to the family's illustrious heritage. As the ceremony approached, the excitement continued to build, with everyone eager to see if Vaughn would live up to their hopes and the family's esteemed reputation. Jalpa Furcio, Vaughn's father, stared in disbelief as the results of the magic appraisal ceremony were announced. His face was a picture of shock and disappointment. The expectation had been for Vaughn to align with one of the 4 prestigious magic elements, fire, water, air, or earth, like the rest of the Furcio family. Instead, Vaughn's magic was identified as creation magic, a rare and unconventional type that did not fit into the expected elemental categories. Yard Fertio, Vaughn's second brother, was quick to voice his derision. He scoffed at the revelation, his disdain evident. Sesto Fertio, Vaughn's third brother, added his own critical perspective. He expressed his disapproval and highlighted the unfortunate reputation of creation magic. To him, and to many others, creation magic was considered the least desirable form of magic. It was perceived as a magic that lacked practical utility and was viewed as a sign of misfortune among magic users. Creation magic, also known as alchemy, involves manipulating materials such as iron and copper to craft items based on mental images, such as swords and accessories. However, it is known for its high consumption of magical power, often rendering its users less productive. This form of magic demands significant energy to create objects, such as weapons and decorations, which could also be produced by individuals without magical talent. In the realm of nobility, the four primary elements, fire, water, wind, and earth, are highly coveted. The Fertio family, in particular, places immense value on those with strong fire or healing magic. Mercia, the eldest son of the Fertio family, inherited wind magic from his maternal grandmother. Despite his hard work and his position as the family head's representative, he faces disdain from his younger brothers. Yard and Sesto, who possess fire magic, view him with contempt, as fire magic is held in higher regard among the nobility. The significance of magical compatibility within the family underscores the social and political hierarchy that values elemental power above all else. Vaughn's mother, despite possessing strong magical abilities, had a frail body and died shortly after giving birth to him. His father, Jalpa Fertio, had high expectations for his youngest son. The contrast between Vaughn's mother's untimely death and the fervent hopes pinned on Vaughan highlights the pressure and high stakes within the Fertio family. Jalpa Fertio, Vaughn's father, was seething with rage. His disappointment in Vaughn's magical affinity was palpable. As a strong fire magic user himself, Jalpa could not understand why his wife Mira, who had shared his elemental prowess, would give birth to a child with creation magic, a type of magic considered a burden rather than an asset. Jalpa's frustration was compounded by his perceived failure as a parent. His anger reached a boiling point as he confronted Vaughan, feeling that his son's presence was a humiliation that tarnished the Fertio family name. In his fury, Jalpa drew his sword, ready to end Vaughn's life to remove the stigma he believed had besmirched the family's honor. However, before the execution could take place, Mercia, the eldest son of the Fertio family and Vaughn's older brother, intervened. Mercia was a figure of authority within the family, known for his dedication and status. Mercia proposed a solution to redirect the family's perceived shame. He suggested that Vaughan be assigned to oversee a remote and undeveloped area within the Fertio family's territory. This area, located near the Wolfsburg Mountains and a distant village, had minimal strategic value but held untapped magical resources. The village was positioned near the territory of Count Ferdinand, who was embroiled in a conflict with the kingdom of Yareneta. Mercia explained that the village's location made it an ideal place for Vaughan, as it would be largely unaffected by the ongoing conflict and served as a relatively safe outpost. Jalpa, impressed by Mercia's strategic insight, accepted the proposal. He agreed to appoint Vaughan as the feudal lord of the village, a decision that would effectively distance Vaughan from the Fertio family's core power structures while giving him a place to manage. Jalpa's final remarks reflected a grudging acknowledgement of Mercia's worth and the practicality of the solution offered. As Jalpa left the room, his anger was momentarily replaced with a sense of resolution, recognizing Mercia's role in resolving the family's predicament and finding a purpose for Vaughan within the family's broader plans. Kneeling before his younger brother, Mercia Fertio expressed deep remorse. His wind magic attribute had long been a source of ridicule from their father and brothers, and he felt a profound sympathy for Vaughan, who was now burdened with the less esteemed creation magic. Mercia's guilt over his past mistreatment and his inability to shield Vaughan from similar hardships led him to offer a heartfelt apology. He made it clear that he would accept any resentment Vaughan might harbor towards him. Vaughan, with a look of gratitude, acknowledged the gravity of Mercia's intervention. He recognized that without his brother's assistance, he would have faced dire consequences, potentially death, imprisonment, or even the humiliation of becoming a slave. Vaughan was resolute in making the most of the opportunity his brother had provided him, understanding its value in a moment of desperate crisis. Mercia, reflecting on Vaughan's words, admired his brother's perceptiveness. Despite his own struggles, Vaughn's ability to grasp adult concerns and express his thoughts so maturely impressed him. Mercia noted that Vaughn's progress had always been a point of pride for Sparta and Teal, and he was aware that Vaughn's upcoming assignment to a remote area would be challenging. Nevertheless, Mercia was determined to support his brother in any way he could, no matter how small. Vaughan, deeply moved by Mercia's support and understanding, thanked him sincerely. The gesture underscored the bond between the brothers and the hope that Vaughn's new path, while fraught with difficulties, would be met with resilience and determination. Teal, sensing Vaughn's inner turmoil, offered words of reassurance. Despite Vaughn's lack of traditional magical prowess, Teal reminded him of his wisdom and noble standing, emphasizing that being assigned to a remote village, though seemingly harsh, carried its own form of prestige. The role of a feudal lord, even in such isolation, was still a notable achievement. Vaughan, reflecting on Teal's encouragement, acknowledged the gravity of the situation. While the prospect of being a feudal lord in a remote village seemed daunting, he chose to focus on the potential benefits. The gag order and restrictions imposed on him seemed to hint at an opportunity for freedom from the rigid constraints of aristocratic life. He envisioned the village as a place where he could enjoy a more relaxed existence, away from the intense pressures of his previous life. Embracing this new perspective, Vaughan resolved to transform the remote village into a place where he could live comfortably and joyfully. He looked forward to the freedom and possibilities that lay ahead, determined to make the most of his new role. With renewed enthusiasm, Vaughan prepared himself for the challenges and opportunities of his upcoming journey, ready to shape his new life with purpose and optimism. The Duke's family, despite their lofty status, was not so different from commoners in their fundamental priorities. While nobles often spoke in grandiose terms to bolster their own pride, their actions revealed a different reality. Their foremost concern was self-preservation rather than the welfare of the kingdom. This tendency to prioritize their own safety over the security of their subjects was a glaring contrast to their proclaimed values. Nobles frequently displayed disdain for the common people, particularly neglecting the needs of adventurers and the broader populace. This disparity between their rhetoric and actions highlighted a systemic flaw in their approach to governance and societal responsibility. Ortho, an adventurer, expressed his frustration, reflecting on the challenge of guarding a noble's child. He felt that dealing with royalty was a daunting task, given their tendency to be arrogant and dismissive of commoners, including adventurers like himself. This sentiment was shared by many who had encountered royalty directly. Puriel added that such disdainful attitudes from royalty were common experiences for those who interacted with them. Kazara inquired about the reasons behind accepting the request despite these frustrations. Ortho, showing his vexation, admitted that his acceptance was driven by the fact that it was a request from the prestigious Furcio family. His duty bound him to comply, despite his reservations about the nobility's attitude towards common folk. As Vaughan greeted the adventurers, he approached Ortho with a warm smile and introduced himself. He expressed his pleasure at meeting them and acknowledged their role as his escorts. Ortho, surprised by Vaughan's friendly demeanor, responded courteously, acknowledging the introduction. Vaughan, noting Ortho's impressive appearance, admired him and remarked on his weapon's size and weight, showing genuine interest and enthusiasm. Ortho, in turn, acknowledged Vaughan's observation about the weapon, explaining that the greater the weight, the greater the power it wielded. Kazara, observing Vaughan, noted his ordinary yet endearing presence and commented on his appearance, finding him to be quite charming. Ortho cautioned the group about treating Vaughan with care, emphasizing the need to be mindful of their interactions. Puriel decided to address Vaughan without formalities, opting to refer to him as Master Vaughan, signaling a respectful but straightforward approach to their new arrangement. As Vaughan prepared to leave for his exile, he instructed his staff to load their belongings onto 3 horse-drawn carriages. Despite the initial plan to provide only a single carriage, Vaughan's brother Mercia had insisted on increasing the number to ensure ample space. Vaughan noted that Teal would accompany them, and though only a few were aware of his non-traditional magic ability, word had a way of spreading. A knight, declared his intention to join the escort, vowing to protect Vaughan and confront anyone who posed a threat. Vaughan, initially surprised, questioned whether it was customary to request such an escort from the knight army. Unsure of the official protocol, instructed his subordinates to hasten their preparations. Unexpectedly, Esparta also expressed a desire to join the group. He mentioned that although he was retiring soon, his long service alongside Vaughn's father had made him a valuable asset. At 55 years old, Esparta sought a quieter life in the countryside while remaining involved in overseeing Vaughn's education. Vaughn, observing the situation, reflected on Esparta's long-standing role with his father and the difficulty in replacing such a trusted servant. Esparta assured Vaughn that he would continue to guide his studies while enjoying his retirement in the village. Vaughn, although frustrated by the excessive preparations and the large number of items packed, felt a mix of gratitude and concern. He appreciated the support from Dee's enthusiasm and Esparta's wealth of knowledge, even as he wondered about the necessity of the large convoy and the nature of their new life in the village. Noticing Vaughn's smile, Teal approached with curiosity, her voice filled with concern and warmth. She inquired about the cause of his apparent happiness. Vaughn, expressing genuine gratitude, conveyed his appreciation for the support from everyone accompanying him. Teal, with a touch of pride, shared that she was the only maid permitted to join Vaughn on this journey, a result of her own request to Master Mercia. She revealed that many other maids had wished to accompany Vaughn, but only she had been given the opportunity. She contrasted her favorable treatment with the less considerate attitude of Vaughn's older brothers, Yard and Sesto, who were known for their poor treatment of the staff. In contrast, Vaughn had always been kind and attentive, regularly greeting the maids, offering them treats, and even assisting them with their tasks. The maids who participated in sword training were particularly fond of Vaughn. Meanwhile, Kamshin, who had been given his freedom, made a profound declaration of loyalty. Despite being offered the option to remain behind or alter the terms of his slavery, Kamshin chose to devote himself entirely to Vaughn, pledging his life to serve him unwaveringly. Vaughn, caught off guard by Kamshin's intense declaration, responded with a teasing tone, playfully questioning the nature of Kamshin's feelings. Kamshin, however, responded earnestly, affirming his deep admiration and affection for Vaughn, further solidifying his commitment and devotion. As Vaughn prepared to leave the city, he observed that the carriage lacked any royal family crest, a deliberate choice by his father to ensure his departure went unnoticed. The intention was to remove Vaughn from the public eye as discreetly as possible. Reflecting on the 2 years he had spent in the city, Vaughn felt a pang of loneliness, a sense of detachment from a place that had become familiar. However, his hopes for a quiet exit were quickly dashed. Arbs, one of the knights, loudly announced to the crowd, urging them to clear the way for Vaughn's carriage. The commotion was contrary to Vaughn's desire for anonymity, and he found the public display both surprising and embarrassing. Lu, another knight, explained that the announcement was made on the instructions of Mr. D, who wished to give Vaughn a proper send-off rather than allowing him to leave unnoticed. Despite Vaughn's father's intentions for discretion, the knights were eager to show their respect and appreciation for their departing master. Lu added that D, who was currently sleeping in the carriage, had likely acted without realizing the breach of protocol. Lu promised to inform Vaughn when D awoke by signaling with the flag. As the knights continued their enthusiastic announcement, the crowd, gathered to see off their beloved young noble, called out with curiosity and well wishes. Their heartfelt cheers and queries about Vaughn's destination moved him deeply. Overwhelmed by the unexpected display of affection, Vaughn murmured his gratitude, touched by the genuine care and concern of those he was leaving behind. Reflecting on their journey ahead, the path would take them through 2 cities before reaching their destination. This was Vaughn's first experience camping in this new, dangerous world, despite having lived in a car during his previous life. The prospect of facing monsters in the wild added a layer of trepidation to the adventure. He had hired 2 groups of adventurers for extra safety, with Ortho leading one group. With over 20 years of experience, Ortho was a seasoned professional, adept at handling various clients, including an 8-year-old like Vaughn. Approached with a skewer of beef barbecue, ready to share a meal with the young noble. Grateful for the sustenance and the company, Vaughn thanked Ortho. As Vaughn expressed his gratitude, he noticed that Ortho was watching him with a keen, almost scrutinizing gaze. This attention made Vaughn self-conscious, and he wondered if something was amiss. Ortho, however, dismissed the concern, mentioning he would provide a report later. Teal, ever enthusiastic and supportive, took the opportunity to comment on Vaughn's kindness, suggesting that even seasoned adventurers could appreciate it. Teal's remarks underscored the respect and admiration Vaughn was garnering from those around him. After departing from the city, Vaughn and his group made slow but steady progress across the kingdom. They camped several times as they traveled through a mix of 4 cities, both large and small, taking the opportunity to rest for a whole day in each. The journey was made even slower by the considerable amount of luggage they carried. Over the course of 2 weeks, they managed to cover between 50 and 100 kilometers each day, totaling an impressive 500 to 1,000 kilometers. Vaughn and his convoy continued their journey. Vaughn marveled at the vastness of the kingdom. The scale of their travels was comparable to crossing 3 or 4 prefectures in Japan, highlighting just how expansive the kingdom's territory truly was. The sheer size of the land stretched his imagination, making him wonder about the full extent of the kingdom's vast expanse. As Vaughn's carriage drew closer to the village, Teal excitedly announced their imminent arrival. Vaughn, reflecting on the significance of their arrival, likened it to a new boss being transferred to a workplace, where first impressions were crucial. Just as anticipation built, the carriage came to an abrupt halt. Vaughn, concerned by the sudden stop, sought to understand the issue. The coachman, his face etched with panic, revealed the alarming news. The village was under attack. The urgency of the situation heightened as Vaughn and his entourage faced the reality that their arrival would be met with immediate danger. The sudden attack on the village threw everyone into disarray. Ortho, a seasoned adventurer, assessed the situation with a grim determination. He speculated that the attackers could be bandits or mercenaries, urging those who felt unprepared to withdraw. With his extensive experience in combat, he prepared to confront the threat head-on. Vaughn, observing the scene, noted the village's fortifications, thick wooden walls and armored troops stationed at the gate. He surmised that the attackers, numbering around 40 to 50, would face significant difficulty using ranged attacks against such defenses. The villagers, trapped behind the walls, could do little but take refuge from the siege. D, ever resolute, advocated for their immediate intervention. He believed that, by uniting their forces, they could overcome the attackers. However, Ortho cautioned against hasty action, emphasizing the risks involved. He reiterated his commitment to his principles, highlighting the importance of safeguarding his team's lives and not accepting requests that could lead to unnecessary sacrifice. His pragmatic approach reflected the harsh realities of adventuring, where careful judgment often dictated survival. D, driven by his dedication, rallied his subordinates with fervor. He declared that now was the time to risk their lives, emphasizing the importance of defending the village, which was to be Vaughn's first territory. His commitment to protecting Vaughn was unwavering, and he was ready to draw his sword to honor his duty. Ortho, however, remained practical and cautious. He acknowledged D's valor but pointed out the futility of risking lives recklessly, even with increased payment. He stressed that no amount of compensation could justify the loss of life. D then requested an escort for Vaughn, emphasizing the importance of ensuring Vaughn's safety amidst the chaos. Ortho responded with a conditional agreement, indicating that they might escort Vaughn depending on the situation's evolution. Esparta, with a calm but firm demeanor, interjected, refusing to take part in any unnecessary risks. He noted D's willingness to face overwhelming odds and argued that if D were to perish, no one would be left to govern the village. Esparta's experience and status as a 4-element mage gave him insight into the balance of power, suggesting that the battle's outcome was uncertain. Ortho attempted to reason with Esparta, highlighting that fighting was not a necessity and that risks could be avoided. Despite this, Esparta was resolute, determined to contribute based on his capabilities and understanding of the situation. Esparta formulated a strategic plan to address the imminent threat. His strategy involved constructing a barrier wall that would serve as both a defensive measure and a tactical advantage. The adventurers were to attack from behind this barrier, maintaining a safe distance while launching their assaults. When the enemy's attention was drawn to the barrier, D and his team would strike from the flanks, aiming to exploit the element of surprise for a higher chance of victory. Ortho, concerned about the feasibility of suppressing the bandits' attacks, questioned whether the plan could effectively contain the threat, noting that their only real option might be to use arrows. Esparta, addressing this concern, proposed that the cart, reinforced with iron at critical points, could be used to retreat safely after the initial surprise attack. The primary objective was to create a distraction, not to engage in a prolonged fight. Vaughn inquired if Esparta would stay behind to confront the attackers, and Esparta confirmed he would, taking on the role of bait to ensure D and the others could carry out their attacks safely. Vaughn, worried for Esparta's safety, expressed his fear that Esparta might not survive this dangerous plan. Esparta, resolute and accepting his role, reassured Vaughn that his contribution was crucial and requested permission to proceed with the plan. Vaughn, however, countered with a strong declaration of his own willingness to take on the role of bait, emphasizing his responsibility to lead and protect those under his command. Teal, adamant about Vaughn's safety, opposed the idea of Vaughn becoming the bait and offered to take on the risk himself. Kamshin, equally determined, volunteered to assist Teal in holding off the enemies. Vaughn, recognizing the deep commitment and concern of those around him, reminded them of his leadership role and the need to prioritize their safety. He expressed his gratitude and respect for their dedication, but firmly stated that their lives were valuable and that he would not allow them to sacrifice themselves unnecessarily. Reflecting on his situation, Vaughn acknowledged that despite being labeled as incompetent and exiled from the noble family, he was surrounded by remarkable and kind individuals. Determined not to repeat the mistakes of his past, he resolved to lead from the front and protect his companions, apologizing for any potential risks. Vaughn outlined his strategy with a calm determination, directing the group on how they would approach the battle. He decided to take the cart and advance from the front, positioning it as a decoy to draw the enemy's attention. He instructed everyone to focus their attacks from the left and right flanks, emphasizing that ranged attacks should be their primary approach. Vaughn was clear that if the enemy did not retreat, they were to flee, leaving his body behind if necessary. He reassured them that as long as his identity remained hidden, the duchy would not be unduly troubled. Ortho, with a resigned yet resolute expression, agreed to risk his life for the mission, despite his frustrations. He was determined to ensure the success of the plan, even if it meant making personal sacrifices. Vaughn, concerned about the safety of his escort group, attempted to deter them from joining the fight. However, Ortho insisted on their commitment, emphasizing the importance of their responsibility and the need to support Vaughn in his moment of need. Puriel, touched by Vaughn's genuine concern and personal recognition, expressed a willingness to risk their lives, highlighting that unlike many nobles they had encountered, Vaughn had taken the time to remember and value each of them. D, reaffirming the commitment of the knights, spoke of their duty to protect Vaughn and the future of the Furcio family. He urged Vaughn to remember his responsibilities as a noble, even after the expulsion was complete. Esparta, ready to put his plan into action, assured everyone that the situation would be resolved within 3 days. He began by casting a powerful barrier with his magic, using an earth wall to isolate the bandits. This move would serve as a protective measure and enable a coordinated attack from D and his knights on the left side, while Ortho and his team would engage from the right. Those not directly involved in the assault were to stay on standby, prepared to move if the situation became dire. With his plan set in motion, Esparta swiftly executed his strategy, creating a strategic barrier to control the battlefield and manage the enemy's movements. As the earth wall took shape, Kazara marveled at the craftsmanship, noting how Esparta's skills as a magician surpassed those of a typical butler. Ortho, observing the completed barrier, acknowledged Esparta's proficiency, admitting that a 4-element mage could not simply fulfill the role of a butler under any normal circumstances. Reflecting on the situation, Ortho was struck by Vaughn's unusual dedication. He considered that if Vaughn had been adamant about sacrificing himself, he might have followed through. Ortho, initially skeptical, found himself intrigued by Vaughn's character. His view of nobility had been profoundly altered over the past 2 weeks. The boy's willingness to risk his life for the sake of his new responsibilities was both surprising and admirable. Ortho realized that despite the burdens and pressures of his role, there was something exceptional about Vaughn. He was moved by the commitment of everyone involved, from the retired butlers and maids to the adventurers, all united in their efforts to protect the village and its people. Even though the prospect of serving a young noble from a small village had seemed trivial and challenging, Ortho felt a renewed sense of purpose. Vaughn's selflessness and sense of duty, especially given his age, made him a unique and compelling figure in Ortho's eyes. The young lord's willingness to risk everything for the sake of his people was an extraordinary trait, and Ortho found himself more committed than ever to supporting him. Tears streamed down Teal's face as she expressed her relief, deeply grateful for Vaughn's safety. Kamshin, resolute in her commitment, vowed to protect Vaughn with his life, ready to act as his shield and follow him through any peril. Amidst the tense atmosphere of battle, Vaughn's determination remained unwavering. He instructed everyone to prepare for the worst by retrieving the medical supplies from the cart. His focus was on ensuring that they were fully equipped to handle any emergencies that might arise during the conflict. Vaughn's leadership was clear in his commands. Everyone was to do their part, and the team was to be ready to provide aid if conditions became dire. The bandits, confident and at ease, believed their assault on the small village was nearing its end. The surrounding villages and settlements had already begun to crumble under their relentless attacks, and they were certain this village would soon follow. However, just as they charged forward, ready to deliver the final blow, a sudden strike from behind shattered their confidence. A surge of panic rippled through the bandits as they turned to face this unexpected assault. To their shock, a massive earth wall had sprung up behind them, seemingly out of nowhere, blocking their retreat. Confusion and fear spread among the ranks as they realized they were trapped. Seizing the moment of chaos, Dee and Ortho launched their surprise attack as planned. With the bandits disoriented and their formation in disarray, the duo struck from the flank, cutting down enemies with swift precision. Ortho, observing Dee's prowess in battle, marveled at how the knight wielded his massive sword with such ease. Dee, the deputy knight commander of the Furcio family, moved with the skill and strength of a seasoned warrior, his strikes cleaving through the bandits with terrifying efficiency. The bandits' order crumbled under the combined assault from Dee and Ortho, their forces further weakened by the relentless barrage of ranged attacks from Puriel, who held the vanguard position. One after another, the bandits fell, unable to mount an effective counterattack. As victory seemed within reach, a single bandit, desperate and determined, broke away from the chaos. With a fierce resolve, he charged toward the earth wall, intent on taking down Puriel, whose support had been crucial to Dee and Ortho's success. His sudden move added a final note of tension to the unfolding battle, as the outcome hung in the balance. Teal's frustration was evident as she scolded Vaughn, her concern for his safety clear in her voice. She had repeatedly warned him, but it seemed Vaughn had a habit of ignoring her advice. This time, she firmly insisted that from now on, Kamshin should go first in dangerous situations, hoping Vaughn would finally heed her words. Vaughn, sensing her distress, relented, agreeing to her request with a gentle response, hoping to ease her worries and stop her from crying. Puriel, observing the exchange, couldn't help but tease Vaughn. Despite his youth, he had a way of making girls cry, she noted with a playful tone. Vaughn, however, was quick to clarify his intentions. He explained that he always tried to be sincere with Teal, especially because she was someone very important to him. Curious about Vaughn's background, Puriel questioned his heritage. Vaughn's maturity and skills seemed unusual for someone his age, and she wondered if he might not be entirely human. Elven children, after all, aged differently than they appeared. Vaughn, however, dispelled her doubts, explaining that Teal had cared for him since he was a baby, affirming that he was indeed human. Puriel's curiosity deepened, and she asked where Vaughn had learned to wield a sword so skillfully. Vaughn pointed towards D, the seasoned knight who had been his mentor. He explained that, despite his young age and undeveloped physique, D had personally trained him to be stronger, pushing him to exceed his own limits. Connecting the dots, Puriel speculated that Vaughn's sharp wit and extensive knowledge must have come from Sir Esparta. Vaughn confirmed this with a nod, though he added that his mindset had been heavily influenced by Teal as well. Grateful for the rescue, Puriel expressed her deep appreciation to Vaughn. His actions and the strength of his sword had saved her life, and she vowed never to forget the favor he had done for her. Vaughn, modest as ever, brushed off her gratitude, suggesting she simply forget about it. As she reflected on the encounter, Puriel couldn't help but marvel at the situation. She had initially thought that such charisma and skill were the hallmarks of a noble, yet here was a child who had won over the heart of an experienced adventurer with his bravery and sincerity. The realization left her both impressed and intrigued by the young Vaughn. As they neared the village, Esparta noticed a commotion near the entrance. The villagers were beginning to gather, their attention drawn to the approaching group. The unexpected timing of their arrival had stirred curiosity and perhaps a bit of apprehension among the villagers. Teal acknowledged the situation, noting that they had arrived earlier than planned, but there was no turning back now. With a determined look, Vaughn steeled himself for the encounter ahead. This was his first meeting with the villagers, and he was intent on making a good impression. He knew that how he presented himself today would set the tone for their relationship moving forward. Vaughn stepped forward to greet the gathered villagers, his voice steady and confident as he introduced himself. He was Vaughn Furcio, a member of the Furcio family responsible for overseeing the territory, including this village. With a clear sense of purpose, he announced that he would be managing the village from that day forward. The village elder, Rhonda, stepped forward in response. Grateful for the assistance the village had received, she introduced herself, expressing her appreciation for his arrival. Vaughn acknowledged Rhonda with respect, recognizing her role as the elder of the village. He had learned that until now, neither the Lord nor any defensive troops had been sent to protect the village. With a tone of sincerity, he offered an apology for this oversight. Resolute in his duty, he declared his intention to protect the village as its new lord, requesting the villagers' understanding and cooperation in this new chapter. Impressed by Vaughn's politeness and determination, Rhonda extended an invitation to him. He welcomed him to her home, offering a chance to discuss the future of the village further. Seated inside the humble home of the village elder, Vaughn listened intently as Rhonda began to explain the dire situation the village faced. 6 months ago, the village had a population of 150 people. However, after enduring relentless bandit attacks, their numbers had dwindled to just 100. Today marked the third assault, each one carried out by a different bandit group. Vaughn, concerned, inquired about the reason why so many bandits targeted this village. Rhonda explained that the village's proximity to the Yaranetta Kingdom's borders once offered some protection, as the border guards, under Count Ferdinand, patrolled the area, but with the change in leadership, the territory had been left unguarded, leaving the village vulnerable. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Vaughn acknowledged that this lapse in protection was due to House Furcio's oversight. He offered a sincere apology, understanding that while the previous lord, Count Ferdinand, had appointed magistrates in each town. His own father, Marquis Fertio, had only assigned a lieutenant to the larger city. The smaller villages, like this one, had been neglected, and Vaughn admitted he was still unfamiliar with their specific circumstances. Rhonda, feeling the weight of the situation, began to express the villagers' frustrations. The lack of protection and the negligible taxes from a small village like theirs made them feel unworthy of defense. However, before Rhonda could finish, Vaughn redirected the conversation toward the future of the village. He emphasized that while it was easy to dwell on the failures of the past or the flaws in the kingdom's laws, such complaints wouldn't change anything. What mattered now was finding a way forward. Rhonda's son, Malaga, was initially enraged by Vaughn's words, perceiving them as dismissive. However, Vaughn remained calm, explaining that he was speaking beyond the immediate concerns of the village. He recognized the nobles' responsibility to correct their own failings and those of the outdated laws established by the Berlinate royal family when the kingdom was founded. But he insisted that the focus should be on what they could do to improve the village. Despite the challenges, Vaughn outlined 3 specific goals: making the village valuable enough that the kingdom couldn't ignore it, earning money to hire dependable mercenaries, and remodeling and developing the village on their own. Rhonda's daughter, intrigued by Vaughn's plan, acknowledged that while those goals were noble, none of them would be easy to achieve. Vaughn agreed, noting that even if the village could sell wood or stone, the cost of transportation made it difficult to turn a profit. The villagers' low level of education also prevented them from producing high-value crafts, trapping them in a cycle of poverty with little chance for improvement. But Vaughn was determined to break that cycle. He declared that while the road ahead would be tough, he was there to learn and protect the territory, urging everyone to work together to maintain and develop the village. Esparta, who had been quietly observing the conversation, stepped in to offer his support. Introducing himself as the former head butler of the Fertio family, he vouched for Vaughn's abilities, revealing that Vaughn had been recognized as a prodigy and appointed lord of the territory at the tender age of 8. Esparta reassured the villagers that both he and Dee, the former deputy knight commander of House Fertio, were accompanying Vaughn, and they would treat the villagers as passengers on a ship, guiding them safely through the troubled waters ahead. Rhonda, taken aback by the presence of such important figures in her humble village, could hardly believe it. Felt like a dream. Malaga, too, began to see hope, realizing that the nobles might indeed be trying to save their village, especially with someone as skilled as Vaughn leading them. Vaughn, however, tempered their expectations. He explained that his magic was limited to creation magic and that he didn't possess much fighting power. Nevertheless, he laid out a plan to strengthen the village's defenses. The wooden fence that currently surrounded the village might have looked sturdy, but it was vulnerable to fire arrows, as were the houses. Vaughn turned to Esparta, asking about the duration of his earth element magic. Esparta explained that while the magic was active, the cohesion would hold, but once the magic energy dissipated, it would revert to ordinary earth. Vaughn decided to use Esparta's earth magic as the foundation for a new protective wall, reinforcing it with stones of various sizes. He also suggested digging a trench to prevent surprise attacks. Dee, experienced in such tactics, volunteered to handle the trench, planning to set traps and create pitfalls, allowing them to attack the enemy from above the wall. With the plan taking shape, Vaughn instructed that bows and arrows be prepared, though acknowledging that it might be difficult for the villagers. He suggested stone slingshots as an alternative for the time being. Finally, Vaughn requested that Chief Rhonda gather all the villagers so he could introduce himself and explain their plan to defend and rebuild the village. After finishing his speech, Vaughn looked out at the gathered villagers, feeling a sense of determination. He was just a child in their eyes, but he had the best officers and scholars from his noble family by his side. It was time to help this village grow, to make it prosperous and secure. He urged everyone to take care of the village with all their hearts, promising that together they could build a brighter future. One of the villagers, concerned about the heavy burden of taxes, hesitantly asked how Vaughn planned to handle them. The current tax rate of 30% on hunted items like monster skins or fangs was difficult to bear. Vaughn listened carefully, understanding the strain this placed on the villagers. He decided to reduce the tax to 10% of the catch, acknowledging that quality of life was more important than high taxes. He even considered covering the difference himself if it proved too much, knowing how devastating it could be if villagers were forced to sell their children to survive. Another villager, worried about the ever-present threat of bandits, asked if Vaughn could arrange for a unit of knights to protect the village. Vaughn explained the logistical challenges involved: a 2-week travel time to reach the village, then a week for preparations, and another 2 to 3 weeks for the knights to arrive. Even then, their presence would only be temporary. The distance made it unlikely they would arrive in time, if at all, and the kingdom's limited resources meant that sending a sufficient number of knights was nearly impossible. Even if they did come, they might be outnumbered and overwhelmed, with few survivors to tell the tale. A middle-aged villager, frustrated by these realities, muttered about the village being abandoned. Vaughn, understanding the man's anger, calmly explained the harsh truth. The kingdom simply didn't have enough knights or the budget to defend every territory adequately. Even if they could raise an army, they would need 200 people, along with the money to provide food, horses, armor, and other equipment. Hiring mercenaries would be prohibitively expensive. Vaughn then turned to Esparta, requesting his assistance in strengthening the village's defenses. Esparta, skilled in earth magic, swiftly created a massive earth wall within the village's fence. The villagers watched in awe as the wall rose from the ground, a formidable barrier that would offer them protection against future attacks. With the wall in place, Vaughn encouraged the villagers to work together. He emphasized that their cooperation was more valuable than any knights could be. If they all pulled together, this village could grow stronger and more prosperous than ever before. With no lodgings available in the village, Vaughn and his group decided to make use of their cart and camping equipment for the night. Rhonda, the village elder, had kindly offered his own home, but Vaughn couldn't bring himself to displace the old man from his own space. He appreciated the gesture but knew it wasn't right to accept. As they settled down, Vaughn reflected on the situation. His creation magic, while useful, had its limitations, especially when compared to the versatility of the 4-element magic. But rather than letting this discourage him, Vaughn resolved not to despair. Wishing for something his magic couldn't provide was futile. Instead, he would focus on what he could achieve. He knew that many of the villagers were still skeptical of him, unsure if this young noble could truly make a difference in their lives. Vaughn understood that earning the villagers' trust was paramount. He recognized that the first step towards progress was ensuring the village's safety from future bandit attacks. With his creation magic, he was determined to build strong defenses that would protect the village and its people. He envisioned a future where the village could thrive, a place where everyone could live comfortably and happily. This vision fueled his determination. Vaughn knew that great progress wouldn't come overnight, but he was committed to the task. Protecting the village and improving the lives of its residents would be his priority. With each step, he would prove to the villagers that he was capable of leading them, that he could make their home a safer, better place for all.